Okay, awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your connection to the organization?
Sure. So my name is Jennifer Guzman, and I'm the executive director for Compass International Family Center. Um, Basically, my connection with Compass started when I was working for Interlink International Institute at Valparaiso University. So Valparaiso University hired a company basically that specializes in preparing international students for college study. And so Valparaiso University chose Interlink, and Interlink was there for about 25 years. So I started in 2011 at Interlink, and from that time, a lot of our students brought accompanying spouses and children. Some of them were visiting scholars as well, not just preparing to go to the university. So I was aware of Compass because they found Compass to be very helpful for their accompanying spouses and children. As they were in the school systems or their spouses wanted to learn English. Um, and then they would kind of bolster their hours that way too. They would get more English study hours at Interlink. So we used to promote Compass and even take groups of our students over there. Um, I also was helping with VU students who were training to be teachers of English to speakers of other languages. And often those students who were trying to get practicum hours, they would go to Compass as well to be able to get teaching experience and to do observation of English language teaching along with their observation hours at Interlink. And then Jessica Berkman, who was the founding director of Compass International Family Center, she ended up working part-time for Interlink. So Interlink and Compass have always been like this, kind of VU and Compass have always been very intertwined. Um, so we worked together, and then she loved directing Compass International Family Center, but her husband got a job in Michigan, and they decided that it was going to be best for them to move. And at that time, she was not working for Interlink. She had gone on to do other things, but she remembered me in our time together, and she approached me and asked if I would take her place. And at that time, that was 2019, and I was still working full time for Interlink. In fact, Interlink was not just at Valparaiso University, it was at six other universities at that time. And then I was the academic coordinator for all of the universities and senior staff. So I didn't know how it was going to work, but I really wanted to do it. And at that time, that job, just directing and coordinating, was going to be 10 hours a week because Compass was very small at that point. And so I said, I'll give it a try. And it was going to work had COVID not hit. And so everything exploded, my full-time job and also at Compass, and it was too much to do. So we called that period of time, that 6 months that I was taking her place, sort of interim executive director. And then they've had program directors or coordinators since then, but they hadn't brought on another executive director until I had actually moved on from Interlink and um, and came back around to her and said, I think I'm finally in a place where I can direct Compass. Then, interviewed with the board and was hired on as the executive director. So what I bring to Compass is um, knowledge of running a program because I was the director not only of a center, but I was the curriculum director for all of the centers at our six universities. And I know how an intensive English program is run, not only from the academic side, but also from the business side. I also have a certification from the Society of Human Resources Management. So to be better at the jobs that I was getting at Interlink, the responsibilities that I was encountering at Interlink, I went both the business and the education side. And then I've always done administration as well. So and I've been working with international students for 30 years. I started right out of college and I lived overseas in China for 10 years, taught English as a foreign language to Chinese university students, and then came back and started a long stint working for Interlink. And then this next season has been Compass. And I have been thrilled to be able to use everything really that I have ever learned about teaching English, um, about administrating a program, about um, the business of a program, even though it's a nonprofit, to be managing, um, anything from the marketing that it takes and all of that to help take Compass forward. So now that we are recovered from COVID, um, now we've just had this huge surge of international students. There was turnover at the Valparaiso Community Schools, there was turnover at Compass. And so now there's all these new people. Well, finally, the new people, I and the new people at Valparaiso Community Schools have met and gotten on the same page now. So the Valparaiso Community Schools now are feeding their families, their international families, into Compass again, which is how we always worked in the past. And they said, get ready because they're coming in droves. And that is true. To put it into perspective for you, we were averaging 46 adults and children participants on a Tuesday night just in the spring. This fall, the last program night that we had, this last Tuesday, we had 38 kids alone. So it just it has very, very quickly rebounded as we've reestablished our connections and as the demand for support for internationals has increased again. So it hasn't been so big since the years of 2011 to 2014. Those were boom years. And then now I think we're going to go back into some boom years again. So we're preparing for that.
Okay. You kind of mentioned this briefly, but could you give us a little bit more background on Compass, and your guys' impact on the community?
Sure. Um, I don't know anywhere else in Valparaiso at the moment that is um, offering English, except for workforce innovations. Um, they have some classes, and I think some churches here and there, and sometimes the library has tried to put together an English program. But um, even the people who are leading those programs, they haven't specialized and they're not specially trained in teaching English to speakers of other languages. And they definitely don't have intensive English program background.
Mhm.
So I don't know anybody around here, even to Michigan City, to Crown Point, to Maryville, really in Porter County, definitely. In Lake County, you start to see some programs, some library programs, but still, there's a long explanation for this, but there's a reason why it's difficult to offer a full-time or even a 10-hour a week program. And there are complications on the organizational side, and there are complications on the on people having the time and the money to do it. So what we're trying to do is really bring high quality English programming to the community where it's not offered at all. They just don't. The only opportunity they would have is if they can go all the way to Purdue and well, Purdue Northwest, which that might be 20 or 30 minutes away from here, or in Hammond. But Purdue, um, I mean, I think it's about $5,000 a semester, which in the grand scheme of thing, that's actually quite reasonable.
Mhm.
We the intensive English program at Interlink used to be $3,000 for 9 weeks. So it'd be $6,000 for a semester. And that's really quite reasonably priced when you're comparing what you have to do to pay trained teachers
Mhm.
um, to teach it. So we're trying to offer that trained teacher experience um, and almost training these internationals how to become language learners. You almost have to do that first. And then that's what an intensive boot camp that I offered this summer was about. How do you even become a successful language learner? But at the same time, they were learning language as we were doing it, and they were learning strategies for memorizing vocabulary and using their vocabulary and building their vocabulary. So I think that's one thing. And I've really tried now to bring representatives from Purdue or even from IU or Ivy Tech, if they're ever going to do something in the future, to create a path for internationals to be able to get their English level up to a place where these civil engineers and these entrepreneurs and these very skilled uh, professionals can actually get back up to um, doing business and engineering and being able to use their mind because that involves communication instead of just landscaping or house cleaning or um, babysitting or uh, construction. So just because that's what they can do without language. But we have very, very highly skilled, highly intelligent internationals that we're working with, and we just want to see them um, reach their potential here and get over that language barrier. But it does take time. We're trying to take out the money part of it, but to dedicate the time. So that training is something that we're able to offer, and that's rare. I haven't seen it around except at Purdue is probably the closest place that you can find it.
So do you charge your clientele at Compass, and how much is that
We do
if
not.
you
It's
do? Okay.
completely free. So we used to offer 2 nights a week. We
Hmm.
only offer 1 night a week right now. And the only reason for that is our venue is so small. Calvary Church cannot host 2 nights a week.
Hmm.
So we are in talks right now with Emmanuel Lutheran to actually return back to Emmanuel Lutheran and offer 2 nights a week. Um, and I would like to go beyond that as well. So these are all sorts of growth things. But in order to do that, we're still we are finding retired VU professors. We are finding retired Valparaiso Community School teachers. And not just retired, they're working now too. I mean, current and retired teachers who who do bring expertise. And then I'm able to give them the training in the teaching English to speakers of other languages. So we could really um, be quite a force um, for this helping internationals over this English barrier in this region. And we would like to offer that for free. And one of the reasons we can do that is because of the amazing volunteers that we have been able to attract. And I think that's because our volunteers recognize that we want to do the teaching with excellence and that we know how to do that. And they can see that in the professional development sessions that we do, that we know what we're doing and we can really be effective. Um, so uh, I've meandered. So kind of all over the place, but you were saying what can you bring to the community? Now that's only one part of Compass. I've kind of brought the whole English. I think that's the most needed part right now that I see is these many skilled professional people needing to get over this language barrier. So I'm really passionate about that. That's part of my personal vision as executive director, what I bring to improving Compass. But something that Compass has always been doing well, and came from the founding director, was the tutoring for children. So we have a preschool professional, a volunteer, doing special preschool prep for internationals. So the parents have an idea of what they're getting into when going to an American kindergarten, and the kids can have a good experience going there because they're already familiar with some of the patterns and things that they'll be doing in American kindergarten. Then we have K through second grade tutoring. We have third through fifth grade tutoring, and we have two kinds. So some tutoring is just their homework. They bring their homework, and we have all these great, like, teachery educational people helping them with their homework. But the other side is, with this new influx of internationals and the sudden growth, those are people who are fresh off the boat. They don't have any English. The children don't have any English. So often, many of our children do have some English, and they just need help with their homework because their parents don't speak English, and so it's hard for them to help. But now we actually have volunteers. Again, we are blessed. Volunteers, God has just provided volunteers with the expertise, and they can actually help work with these kids with their English as a second language needs. So we've got both of those going on. We have to help in both those ways. And then we have youth programming. Same thing, we offer tutoring. But we've also found that youth need some social engagement and have to break through to that difficult time of life, and where they can easily get isolated or shut down or things like that. We've seen some of those things in our youth. So we've been teaching bike repair or guitar, or things that really engage them in a way that it kind of brings them out and makes them feel comfortable with each other, because we're all doing something together instead of just them bringing their homework. So that's been really good. And then overall, a new initiative that we've had is with a little bit of a de-emphasis on homework in the school system, and questions about whether homework really pays off and all that. We found that our kids were coming with less homework than maybe 5-7 years ago. So what we've done is we said, well, we know the research says that the number one way to help kids be academically successful is reading. So we have created a half an hour segment of each of our program nights that are just for reading. Community members might come in and read stories to the younger kids, or we just have time where you can curl up and we have rolling shelves with some books for the younger ages, and then we have rolling shelves with chapter books on them for the youth. And everybody can just go and find something that looks interesting to them and take it back and sit down and relax and read. So that's been another thing that we do with the kids. So there's this whole part of Compass that's dedicated to pre-K through 12th grade, and then we do offer childcare. And then all the adults, then that's the big English initiative. Just what do they need to get over this language barrier so they can get good jobs and um, fulfill their potential. And then one other thing that we offer is citizenship. So again, amazing, provision is we happen to have a past immigration officer. And she comes in, she knows all the documents, she knows the whole process, she knows the test, she knows the interview, she knows the English level that you'll need. Um, and so she and another volunteer work with people in the process of becoming citizens. So I think what we bring to the community is you'd see more and more how there are internationals all around us. And maybe it used to be in South Chicago, or maybe it used to be in Lake County, but now um, Porter County's filling up too. So it's my dream that each city would have something like Compass, because I think it needs to be a local kind of thing. I wouldn't want Compass to be, I wouldn't want to have a lot of compasses. What I would rather do, and I have been doing this, we have been meeting with other churches or other organizations who want to offer the kind of services that we do. And then we just help them know the parts and pieces and how to do it. And then they become it in their own way. But if we had a Compass-like program in every city, I think we would be supporting the internationals in our communities very well. And I think that's something that every community is going to need in the future in Porter County, so that we can just help our international neighbors thrive. There's so many different needs that we meet. It's not just educational and professional and academic, but there's also a big social need. Compass is a place where internationals can belong. They can meet other people who are going through similar things, even though they're not from the same culture or country or language. We see people bond across cultures and across languages because of this shared experience of being an immigrant. And this needing to have somewhere to belong is very, very important. Isolation is one of the things that happens to many internationals, or they get stuck in the subculture. And we all know it's not good for people for their worlds to be too small. So the best thing we can do is to offer a way to be fully engaged, in a community and to have belonging. So they can find that at Compass too. And I think that's probably the most important thing that we do is offer some social and spiritual food for them, and experience, because otherwise it's pretty lonely and isolating.
Thank you. Um, So you mentioned you've increased the amount of clientele pretty drastically. How does your organization structure work? I know you said you rely a lot on volunteers, but like staffing wise, how
Mhm.
many paid people do you have?
Sure. So, the biggest change has been since we had that founding director. I think she was someone, I'm not sure how many hours a week she spent, but um, Compass was a full-time focus for her. And then finding somebody who can really focus on Compass since the founding director left has been a challenge. And I think one of the best decisions that um, the Compass board made. So there's a board of directors. There are six board of directors, and they make the decisions about hiring and budget ultimately the staff is accountable to them. Um, but they made the decision we're going to bring on a 20-hour a week executive director, and that ended up being me. And we're going to have a 20 hour a week program director. So we have two half-time positions that actually make up a full-time, but it's been a very good model because the program director and the executive director, they have very different jobs and they have very different skill sets. But for example, me and my program director, Kathleen Greiwe, um, she and I are just work in a very complementary way. So this has been a great thing. But 20 hours a week, paying me 20 hours a week and paying her 20 hours a week is more than Compass has ever paid staff. And it's the most staffing that Compass has ever done. And so they took kind of a step of faith, saying, we're going to have the funding. And it's not a big ask. We're not trying to get a bunch of staff. It's just these 2 20-hour, people who they have the expertise in the background. And for me, I do curriculum writing to supplement my income. And then Kathleen is a mom who's raising young kids right now. But this has worked really well because both of us, I think Compass is our number one focus in our life. I mean, I'm not saying her over her kids or family, but we don't have another job or another thing that's bigger. And in the past, when Compass was trying to get by on just a 10-hour staff, a few staff people who are working 10 hours a week, it wasn't working very well because nobody could really focus on Compass. So this is a really big change. And we're kind of trusting for the funding to be there. That's probably one of the most significant costs for Compass. So we have about a $60,000 a year budget, and that's including the two 20-hour a week positions. Then we have two other 5-hour a week positions. They're just assistant positions. We have a family outreach coordinator. She coordinates transportation, and she also takes care of the occasional care need. We'll find out that like a mom is in the hospital, and or some other one of our participants is having trouble in school and needs someone to come to the parent-teacher conference with them or something like that. She arranges those things, but it's not huge. Although, as we grow, the family outreach coordinator definitely would grow his or her responsibilities would grow with the number of people that we're serving. And then we have a program assistant. So she assists the director mostly on program nights. just to help with the whole setup and tear down. Since we don't have to pay rent to anyone because there's always been a school or a church who has offered their facilities to us. But that means that we're kind of mobile. So everything we have, there's kind of a setup. We can't just, leave our classes or leave our venue there. We have to unpack it and pack it every Tuesday night. So that's kind of what the staffing looks like. So 4 total, 2 half-time, and then 2 5-hour-a-week part-timers. And everybody else is volunteer. The van driver, our bookkeeper volunteers hours upon hours. We have a website developer. She volunteers her time to take care of our website. So we do try to keep our costs as low as possible. If you hear $60,000 a year, like that's really low.
Mhm.
So, and now that we're at, we jumped up to, we keep track of about 300 participants total, from past to present. Um, but like I said, they come and go. And so now we're up in the 60s per program night, but I could see us being up in the 80s per program night really, really soon. So, but we keep in touch with those people who have kind of come and gone too. And we're working right now on getting feedback in the area of retention, tracking retention, just to grow, to find out if people don't come back, if they visit once or twice and then they don't come back, is there anything that we could have done better? These are some of the business practices too that again we've been able to bring in since I have that background. So does that answer your question for
Yeah,
staff
yeah,
and
it does.
volunteers?
Hmm.
Yeah, we think of it as sort of a 3-leg stool, is what the founding director used to say. It's made of participants, volunteers, and donors. So we have churches who support us, we have individuals who support us. Then we apply for grants, and we also go after corporate sponsors, and then we have fundraisers. So those are the 5 ways that we haven't been able to do that in recent years because that has been a very executive director sort of thing. And since the founding director has been gone, so this is building back up right now.
Mhm.
And that's one of the ways that SALT, if you want to know why we would really need SALT, is because we're building back up and beyond. So if SALT wants to be a part of that, the need is definitely there. There's no doubt that the need is there. So now we're just trying to catch back up with it.
Great. Thank you so much. The Zoom that like the account that I have only lets it go for like I think
Oh yeah,
30
40
minutes. So it's
minutes.
gonna time us out. So I'm gonna send you a new link so that we don't
Oh,
like get
actually, you
cut
can
off.
jump back on this link. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I can?
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll just
Okay.
get there and then you got to hit record again. I used to
Yeah.
teach online.
We've been
So,
running into technology issues with
oh yes,
having to do these online, but
very familiar with this. So yeah, at 40 minutes, if we get bumped off, then I'll just jump back on.
okay, perfect. I just wanted to let you know. It says we have like
Thank
five
you.
minutes left, but I didn't want
Yes.
you to like freak out thinking
No.
I ended the meeting or something.
Sounds good.
Okay. Um, and then you kind of mentioned this for the most part about your budget, and then how does your fundraising look like? What are some bigger fundraisers that you do? And like, is that what mainly hits that 60,000 or
No. I think what mainly hits our 60,000 is um, churches and individual donors. But the thing is we don't have we I can probably count on one hand how many monthly donors we have. And and the churches that we have um, give quarterly. So, but that needs to change also because it's mostly been, yeah, I mean, we really live on faith. We're like, we we just have, it's mostly out of the blue. This church that we, which I mean to remedy, but like a church that knows about us, but we haven't been in touch with them for a while, suddenly a check shows up from them. Or this donor, who hasn't maybe given in 2 years. Suddenly we get something from them. Um, it's totally unpredictable right now. What I'd like to do is I'm trying to meet all of those individuals and trying to get regular meetings with churches. So, what we call our bread and butter, can be a little bit more predictable, that people are committed or they don't mind even spreading out what they would have normally given, but in sort of a monthly way, and spread it out a little bit, because we get to the end of every year and we're like, you know, or we're getting low, and then, you know, something will come in the mail, but that's how we're getting by right now. We have not had a fundraiser in forever. We just had our first fundraiser in October. It was a trivia night. Our goal was to raise $5,000. And after the few expenses that we had for that event, we did almost to the dollar raise $5,000. Um, and so that helps. But right now we're sort of offsetting, um, spending and losses with our growth and this, leap of faith to have more staff, more paid staff hours. So now the grants, we got a grant from the Porter County Community Fund. Um, that was incredibly helpful. The founding director had volunteered her time on top of all of her other work from Michigan and got that grant for us. Now grant writing and applying for grants is in my arena. So, and I have several now, and I have a volunteer who helps me with grant writing now. So we'll probably see some seeds that are being planted this year come to fruition next year, I hope. But it's really, we've just been kind of resurrecting the the whole fundraising part of it. And that's particularly what an executive director does, besides mission and vision and making sure everything is aligned and going in the right direction. A big part of my job is fundraising. So in those newsletters, we have newsletters that go out. And that's a big deal because they go out to donors, they go out to everyone that we know, telling them what we're doing. And we often get a lot of response from the newsletters. They go out quarterly. And then at the end of the year, our final newsletter is, this is how much our budget was this year. This is it's usually a shortfall at this point in the year. And then the donors at the end of the year make up the difference. And we always kind of hit it at the end of the year. That's been typical. But I'd like that to not be the case where we're just like barely at the end of the year, whew, you know.